Hello and welcome to Sidequest. This is our video game show here at Geekverse. I'm your host, Dylan Must, and I have with me the trainer, Taylor Field. How's it going, my friend?
It's going very well. Happy to be here. Nice fresh start of the week being your guest on today's episode.
Yes, the freshest way to start a week. Very excited for this episode. We kind of have a mishmash of topics. We're going to mainly talking about Palworld, which is the biggest game in the world out of absolutely nowhere that happened. So we'll talk about all of that. And we'll just talk about some of the games we've been playing. A little more Avowed. We talked about Avowed last week with the Xbox Direct, and they had an even deeper dive with some more info that came out like right after that they didn't even like announce as part of that Direct. Very confusing, but we have some more Avowed stuff to talk about. So should be a fun, short and sweet episode. Later this week, it was announced that there is a PlayStation Sony State of Play happening on the 31st. That's Wednesday. If it's super juicy, me and Travis are probably going to do an emergency Sidequest episode. We'll probably record that Wednesday and put it up right away sort of thing. If not, which, I know, they announced like Stellar Blade and Rise of the Ronin are going to be there, which makes me think those might be like the two biggest games there. If that is the case, then we might just roll it into next week's Sidequest, so just stay tuned to the feeds on that. You might have a bonus episode this week or early, I guess. And then, Taylor, I don't know if you have seen these Metacritic scores, but 2 games from our draft have already come out, and we have a start to this race. So you had Tekken 8 on your list, which is out now. Travis had Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, which also came out. Here's the funny thing with this is like all the different versions, like, you know, PC, PlayStation, Xbox, slightly different scores, and it actually both of you picked the version that did weaker, if that makes sense. So here's the breakdown of it. You picked Tekken 8 on Xbox. The Xbox version has an 87. PlayStation's at a clean 90, and PC's at a 93. So that's actually like a fairly big difference, like 6 whole points of difference there.
I'm surprised I picked that for Xbox in retrospect, because I feel like those fighters always seem to do better on PlayStation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe Street Fighter 6 or Mortal Kombat 1 were the opposite last year, and you had looked at that, I'm not sure. And then for Travis, he picked Like a Dragon on PlayStation. PlayStation was at an 89, but the Xbox version was at a 93. So both of you kind of missed out on like a big, juicy 93 opportunity. Now, it's still early. Things could change. More reviews could get added. You know, within a month or two, it should all be... I don't know how long it usually takes for it to sort out. I don't really count the numbers until the end of the year anyway, but interesting start of the year. So technically, Travis has the early lead by 2 points there. But yeah, man, I was especially for Tekken, like 6 whole points worth of Metacritic difference. That's not a ton, but it's a notable amount. So I don't know if the Xbox version is just worse or if there's just less reviews on that version, and therefore it's I don't know, the number's a bit more random in that way. I'm not too sure, but we'll keep an eye on that, and maybe who knows? Maybe you'll climb up, maybe his will go down. Not too sure.
Does Metacritic compile the reviews like regardless of what console it's on? Like if there was like a division to see why people are choosing to put it on this console or this one?
Let me open that up. I feel like they might have implemented something like that recently, because it made me think like, oh yeah, I guess there's a universal acclaim. Maybe is that what, or that might be what that means, and that would equal it at a 90. Yeah, that would equal it at a 90. So I guess I think that is a newer thing. Maybe that's why we didn't do it. So maybe that's a thing in the future. I kind of like rolling dice of picking a console.
I do
but
too.
At the same time, yeah. I feel bad for you in this case, because you kind of got screwed over, and so did Travis, even though
that's the
you
risk.
guys both picked opposite versions. So yeah, I don't know. That is something to consider though. Like that, just that could be really funny for like a game though that has like a Switch port or something that is just really bad and like gets way lower or something. I don't know if that really happens, but anyway, good start to the draft. So that's fun to have a couple games on there. Let's just get right into it. We're gonna talk about Palworld here. So first of all, did you have any time over the weekend to check this game out at all? Cool. So we will talk about our thoughts, but I want to talk around this, because this has been such a big surprise, I guess, at the start of this year. Because I remember, you know, last year, maybe even the year before, seeing a trailer for this game and thinking like, oh, it's Pokemon with guns. That's like their little... I don't know if that's... I mean, I don't think that's the tagline they used, because then that would get them in maybe some murky water there on the marketing. But that's what the community has called it. Even I was looking through some of the YouTube like trailers, and that's what like IGN put in their big like trailer for the launch trailer, whatever, was just like Palworld trailer in brackets, Pokemon with a gun. So like, you know, when IGN's pushing that narrative, it's gonna catch on. But that's very much like the vibe that the game had. And I thought, it's going to have its audience. People are going to be into this. But man, it is exploded. It's already sold and these numbers could change and are probably even higher than this number I have. But it's apparently sold over 8 million copies on Steam already, which is absolutely insane. It's the second game in Steam history to ever hit more than 2 million concurrent players. Like 2.1 I think it hit, which is just, I think PUBG is the only game that has had more concurrence in it. So it's beat out Counter-Strike Global Offensive, like Dota 2, like I don't know, Cyberpunk, Skyrim, all these huge games that have a ton of people on there. It's beat that, which is insane. And on Xbox, we don't really have numbers for that yet. But like quietly, this game just launched on Game Pass as well, so I'm sure there's a ton of people playing on Xbox. I don't know what the sales would be. And actually, while I'm talking, can you look up how much this game costs? Because it is in early access on Steam, and then game preview is what they call that on Xbox. So I don't know if it's maybe just a really low price because of that, and that could obviously inflate some sales. More people jump in there. But yeah, randomly just an Xbox console exclusive on Game Pass. That's a really big deal right now. So I don't even... It's kind of weird that just kind of came as a surprise too for the Xbox community over there.
I'm seeing $29.99 USD.
So that's a really solid price. I mean, for early access, I'd say that's probably like about average. But for a game like this, that seems like a pretty solid price. I have to imagine that's like same or similar on Xbox as well. But of course, if you don't have access to Game Pass, I don't know if it's Game Pass PC. Which, if that is the case, that would make me wonder if why those Steam numbers are as high as they are. I mean, not that everyone's subscribed to Xbox Game Pass on PC, but still, that would be maybe a bit of a surprise there. But maybe people see the $30 price tag and they don't really care. So, yeah. And then I went back because I wanted to see like how many views were these trailers getting. Like, was this game bound to be massive? And like the announcement trailer from their channel had like 400,000 views. That IGN trailer I was talking about had like 1.8 million, which is like that's pretty big. But that's still IGN. But I'm still just shocked at how much this game has exploded. But at the same time, maybe I shouldn't be. I feel like there is a appetite for Nintendo-like games, and specifically like Pokemon type of games that are of just like a higher quality that feel like a current gen thing, right? We've seen that with Pokemon recently. Scarlet and Violet is a big detractor of this, where it's like, man, that game just ran like garbage. It probably feels like an early access game, but they still just put it out there for $90, 2 versions, probably got 180 out of a lot of people, a lot of money. Or even like Arceus, like sure, it's a great game maybe, but it absolutely dog shit graphics, looks horrible. Not to say that this game's any better. We'll talk about the quality of it, but I think maybe there is an appetite for, this is like an Unreal Engine 5 game, like this big higher quality version, maybe has features that Pokemon refuses to do because they kind of just release the same game every year with a couple new creatures and one to two new mechanics. But yeah, it's pretty crazy how much this game has exploded. Do you have any thoughts or any theories as to why that is? Especially like I'm curious about your perspective here because you are a Pokemon fan. You got Scarlet Violet. I think you've pretty much been in there for like most generations of Pokemon at least. I really just jump like I do have Sword and Shield and I play the odd spin-off game, but I'm definitely not the be all end all in terms of Pokemon, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm usually there for every generation. Now, as to why this game has popped off, I could not understand or fathom that reasoning. It's beyond my conception. So I think that it's just falls into that mysterious category of being something that people just latch onto and love, and it's just been memed and it's blown out of proportion. Then when you see Nintendo come in with their lawsuits, people get even more excited, and that only stokes the fire of people like, oh, I gotta try this game kind of a thing. Right. So it just expedites it a little bit more.
Yeah, that could be a thing too, where people are like, man, I gotta play this game before Nintendo takes it down. That's like genuinely a concern that people have, because I'm sure like all the articles have that all over their headlines to get they got good clickbait going on. But like, I don't know if this game is actually going to be in any sort of legal trouble with Nintendo.
No, I think at the most they might do some sprite and like character changes or something like that, but I don't think the game is going to be pulled off the shelves anytime soon.
Yeah, so, definitely. I wanted to read that. So this was Nintendo made a post. They didn't specifically call out Palworld, but it's pretty obvious as we're talking about here. But it was just titled "Inquiries Regarding Other Companies' Games." We have received many inquiries regarding another company's game released in January 2024. We have not granted any permission for the use of Pokemon intellectual property or assets in that game. We intend to investigate and take appropriate measures to address any acts that infringe on intellectual property rights related to the Pokemon. We will continue to cherish and nurture each and every Pokemon and its world, and work to bring the world together through Pokemon in the future. I never even read that far into the statement. That's a weird addition. That's from the Pokemon Company, so under Nintendo there. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I really don't foresee this actually going anywhere in terms of there being any sort of legal trouble. How many games have we seen before that like really borrow art styles from other things? And this game is certainly egregious in some cases, especially after playing the game and seeing some of these. I'm like, oh my god, this is very close. But I still don't feel like there's going to be any negative repercussion here. I'm very curious to see if that does happen. If anything were to happen, I think it would take years at this point. Like, I don't think we'll see Steam taking this down or Xbox taking it off their marketplace in the next month or anything like that. But yeah, what do you think now? Because you have more history with these Pokemon. When the more you're seeing these characters in game and whatnot, are you think there's any danger there for this developer?
Like I said, I don't think there's danger for the game to be pulled. I think the only danger is just having to re-change the skins of some of these pals. Getting into this world immediate. It's like, okay, well, this is like a whole new next gen situation of Pokemon now. They all totally look like Pokemon. It's actually hilarious. So I even asked Madison, like, Madison, what do you think these are? What do they remind you of? Oh, these are Pokemon. Playing a Pokemon game? No.
Yeah, the eyes, like the art style. There's one of those derpy little guys I came across early who it's just Ditto with like a slightly different skin color and a freaking toque. It's like that.
Is that like the green and brown one?
Yeah, like that thing looks exactly like Ditto. I think it looks cool, but of course it doesn't feel entirely new in that way. It feels like it's definitely heavily inspired by maybe one of the developers' favorite games or series. I'm not too sure.
The dot for eyes, just like
exactly right. That puts it over the top.
Oh, that's hilarious. I do think as well, though, the depending how things progress, I think that Nintendo might be afraid of confusion. I don't think they'd want people to get like misrepresentation. Like, it's one thing to like steal full-on carbon copy your content, but I think they may be afraid in the future, like, hey, people are talking about Pokemon and they're mistakenly referring to Palworld, and that is another
especially
con.
Taking a game that is incredibly E-rated like Pokemon, and this being Pokemon with guns where you're shooting Pokemon down and essentially like just committing slavery with them in terms of making them do all this work for you in these bases. So I could see them taking issue with that. But yeah, I don't know if there'll be much of a legal standing for them to do much about it.
Now, on that note of legal standing, I'm not sure if you're going to transition to this at some point, but PETA I also saw looking into some stuff with Palworld.
Oh, really? What is that about?
I think it was the
cruelty elements.
Animal cruelty, yeah, because I mean, there's definitely some animal cruelty going on in this.
I didn't see PETA going after Last of Us Part 2 when you could like shoot dogs in that game. So I don't know. I don't know why PETA cares about these freaking fictional creatures that are very
maybe it is completely.
And when you shoot
just
them, like, it's not like they're
thing.
bleeding everywhere and their heads are chopped off. Like, their eyes just get crossed out and they roll around like on the ground. That one seems like they're just trying to maybe drum up some people to go to the PETA website and get some hits there or something.
You know what? In retrospect, maybe this is my bad. I have to redact what I said.
Okay.
Maybe people have been saying that this is PETA's like worst nightmare or something like that because
it's
how they're treating animals.
Saying that.
Yeah.
That would be really funny to me if they were actually going after this game for that.
Going after Rings of Power, and they're going after Palworld. That's their two things. The things you do to some of these pals, it does blow my mind. And I think I was watching some videos. When you get a meat cleaver and you're like attacking them, it actually blurs out what you're doing.
Oh, okay.
Because it's very bad. But again, it's not like chopping up or anything like that. I appreciate how they mimic the Pokemon fainting aspect, where the Pokemon just falls back and like they look like they're fainted with their eyes. Same design too of Pokemon as well when they faint. So
yeah, but you're right though. You are still beating them up with cleavers and shooting them with guns and stuff. This makes me wonder how much, because there's been copycat things before, things that borrow art style or gameplay mechanics. There's obviously all sorts of that in terms of genres taking off, and whatever genre is popular, of course, they're going to take inspiration from other games that are popular in that genre. But it makes me wonder how many other companies are going to try this sort of tactic, which is like really on that razor's edge of plagiarism in terms of art style. And that's what surprised me the most when I first got into the game, is that this game doesn't really play at all like any Pokemon game. Like, there is the pals, you're collecting them, and maybe some mechanics are similar. And there's a thing that looks a lot like a Pokeball. It has the same animation, though it's blue and has like some little gold tips on either end. So it's different from the legal standing. But it's like, this doesn't really play like Pokemon at all. It plays a lot more like a combination of Minecraft and Breath of the Wild, which are just very popular. Just any sort of crafting game mixed with any sort of open world game that takes inspiration from that Breath of the Wild style. So maybe that was the big thing that surprised me. I mean, when people are talking about the plagiarism element of this, it's not that they're stealing everything from Pokemon. It's really just specifically that art style, and the Pokemon and the pals is the similarity that people are going after. But yeah, do you feel like this is going to inspire other companies to just try to mess around with some of this infringement stuff? Like, I remember this was a thing recently where, I think it was last fall, there was this game that released on Nintendo Switch, and I forget what it was called. It was called like The Last Survivor, something generic like that. And it just looked exactly like The Last of Us, like a kind of a derpy version that someone probably made in 3 months or something like that. But just very much and it's not that like Last of Us is set in some crazy cartoony world with a distinct art style or something, but it just borrowed so much to the point that Nintendo did take that down from their eShop, I believe. I don't know if there's a resolution to that. But obviously other games have done this and failed in the past. And this one's not on Nintendo. I would be shocked at this point if Nintendo were to allow a port of this game to their console. Maybe that would be the most surprising thing. Of course, it is Xbox exclusive. We don't know for how long or anything. But yeah, I don't know. Do you think we'll see a rise of this just because of the raw monetary gain that this company has seen from this?
I think that it's very, very possible. Copyright is definitely its own thing, but I do think that there is a lot of value in being able to allow people and teams to really work and fandangle very closely to those lines of copyright and build better off of it. And we see that with the modding community. I mean, they just do amazing things off of some of these games. Yeah. So I think when I look at certain elements that this game has, I'm wondering if it's going to be the reverse, and if Pokemon, like, they did certain things with the way you catch these pals, the way you do certain things in this world, that it makes me feel like this is really what a next iteration of Pokemon game should have been 10 years ago. At least it should have been working its way towards this, because I really appreciate a lot of the detail, even things that were implemented back in Pokemon Sapphire and Ruby with like hidden building secret forts and stuff like that. Very baseline stuff. Of course, it was on a handheld, but this has just been expanded beyond belief with what you can do in here, and I really appreciate that. And again, capturing the pals as well. So I'm wondering, okay, is this something that Nintendo is going to try and copy in the future? But then also there's a big significant risk here, because you look at this kind of a game done with like probably a quarter of the team size that Pokemon has. It's selling for a quarter of the price of a Pokemon game, and it has so much more going for it, so much more you can do. So that I feel like Nintendo should be shaking in their boots. Well, Game Freak, I guess. Game Freak, not really Nintendo.
Yeah, same. I mean, yeah, Pokemon are still, those games always sell insane, even though it is locked to, I guess, one console at this point. But I guess for me, like, where I'd deviate from the point you made there is that, like, I don't really feel like this game, and this is maybe my biggest issue with the game so far, is I don't feel like this game has any identity of its own, right? It is borrowing that Pokemon art style. It's about monster collecting in a very similar way. But then it is just a classic rock and stick game like Minecraft, It's such a basic crafting game in that way. And then it has a freaking glider in there, and it's like third-person combat, so it feels like more like Breath of the Wild. So to me, it's like, if anything, Pokemon Company is looking to those games as their inspiration. I don't really know what they would look to this and say, like, oh, we need to enhance this. Like, those games have been out for so long, and I think that's just how Pokemon's going to go because they have such short development times for those games that they just rush them out and don't really do much with them. And they do spin-offs, which maybe do the more interesting things there. Like Arceus seemed to be a game that a lot of people wanted. That is closer to the Breath of the Wild formula. So like they've already tried part of that here. So I don't know. Maybe they would see the success of this, but I don't know. Do you feel like that when you're playing this game? Do you feel like it's just such a rip of other games and it doesn't really have its own identity as a game?
I haven't played enough. Really, I don't even know how. I could count on my fingers probably how many minutes I've spent playing Breath of the Wild. It's something I need to get more in, like go to. But as far as like Pokemon, like I love just the feel of throwing the Pal Spheres. I think that was really cool. Just the way it just felt so. It felt so updated from what I'm used to, just throwing the Pokeball. It made me kind of think of Fortnite a little bit with the way you're harvesting materials to a slight degree.
You didn't play Arceus, right?
No, I didn't, so I don't have a comparison for that.
Yeah, because I feel like that might have that better game feel of like throwing the Pokeballs and like sneaking up on Pokemon. I don't really know what the combat is like in those games, but I mean it is like a third-person game, right? You're like throwing the balls at them in more real-time sort of way.
Was it motion like throwing? Because I think like Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee had that. I think.
Right. Yeah. Maybe they had that in the control scheme. I'm not too sure actually. That could help. Two other things. So I saw that Nexus Mod is a big modding site. Like probably a million Skyrim mods on there for every game. And I saw that Nexus Mod made a post that they are not going to allow modding for this game like on their website just because they don't want people to do Pokemon modding and risk them having any sort of legal trouble with people modding like Pikachus into Palworld and stuff like that. So I don't know if Nexus Mod is the biggest modding site in the world at this point. I mean, I'm sure Steam, like the Steam itself, like modding community is bigger than Nexus Mod, but I'm sure Nexus Mod really is the only one I've ever heard of, so I'm sure that's a pretty big deal, but I found that to be an interesting thing. And then I was also feeling like, man, I feel like this is one of those games that is like never really going to leave early access. I feel like they just like put that out there. They're going to kind of cash in and move on. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this game does have a lot of passion and great ideas behind it. But to me, it just feels so derivative that I don't know if they're really... I feel like they maybe... at this point could say like, man, we've already got like our money out of this. We can move on to the next thing. But I don't know. Can you really get bigger than Pokemon in terms of ripping something off? So maybe they do keep milking it for years and years to come. And then they have that big 1.0 launch in the future. And that gets a bunch more people to jump in. I don't know. I don't really know what the future is. They've announced like a roadmap, which has a bunch of new features like PvP and big raids and all these sort of new mechanics in there. So I'm not saying they're going to just abandon it this month or anything like that, but I could just see this being one of those games that never really is finished. And they just kind of forget about it one day and move on to the next project.
I agree. It's funny with the mods because I don't know the name of this guy, but he was one of the people that put in some Pokemon. And I think he just put out like a tweet saying Nintendo's come for me, and he had to take things down.
Right.
So yeah, that's not
surprising, man. Nintendo is just absolutely savage when it comes to mods of their games. Even old shit like Melee, they still care that you mod that game. It's like, come on, leave us alone.
Really? Well, you probably, I don't know how it works with copyright claims and whatnot, but I'm pretty sure a company would go through like a third party or like a government group or something to file a claim or probably like oversee your claim that you filed, yada, yada, yada. But I'm pretty confident that Nintendo actually has like a strike team that is actually investigating and doing things themselves.
A team of assassins, like a sleeper cell, essentially. They're like in every country all over the world, just ready to strike at any moment. Yeah, they would do something like that. Instead of letting people just play with, there's already people are playing like Mario Odyssey on their Steam Deck and stuff. Like, I don't know, you can't stop it, Nintendo. Just stop. Get out of the way. Talking about the game itself, I want to hear from you first. So it seems like you're into this game. Seems like you're enjoying it. And I think you have a very valuable perspective here of someone who's, really big into Pokemon and plays every generation. And this feels like it's maybe hitting a new niche for you, or something that at least some features you've wanted Pokemon to try for a while.
Yeah, some new features, and again, it's probably a lack thereof knowledge of what this game actually was beforehand. I kept hearing
Yeah.
the term Pokemon with guns, and I thought legitimately that you were just playing as one of these cute creatures and you had guns, and it was just to run around and
Yeah.
shoot them.
Right.
Very basic game. So I started hearing about all the craziness, people going crazy about this game, and then two of my friends got into it, and they were talking about it, and they talked about some like building things and whatnot. Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's like I didn't put much stock into that at the time. It just went over my head. And finally, when I sat down and I played it, I was taken aback by not playing as one of these pals. I was taken aback by just the open world and seeing how all these pals are maneuvering around, and then seeing that there's basic skill tree, seeing that there is crafting capabilities and harvesting resources, finding treasures and stuff all around the map. I was really, really surprised how much of this uh, worked. And I think that's something else that I really like, because you say that a lot of this is got like the Breath of the Wild and Minecraft kind of feel to it, those types of things mixed in with this Pokemon vibe. It's I think that's one of the biggest things I really, really enjoy, is having such a world like this. And I think
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon might benefit to a slight degree with this kind of thing, but I think it's still limited because it can be very overwhelming when you have such a huge world like this, and detract from maybe some Pokemon stuff. But that's besides the point. When I started making weapons and actually like fighting these
Mm-hmm.
pals, I couldn't properly determine like what pals are stronger than others, and I just thought, you know what, okay, I killed a couple little ones, but let's just go after one of these big suckers, and I just got insta killed a few times.
Yeah, there's one of
But
the. He's level 14. I've challenged him a couple times because I feel like, okay, I'm like level 9 or ish now. Like I should be able to take this guy. And he just keeps spawning, like roaming outside my base, and just continually over and over again. He keeps wrecking me. And I'll like hit him once, and I see like, oh, I'm doing like no damage. So I just leave him alone. But he never forgets. He continues until I'm dead. He will not leave me alone. Then I had some like wolves raid my base at the exact same time. It was pretty brutal timing.
have you gotten guns yet? Because I have not. I've just got the bow and
Mm-mm.
arrow, and I don't know, I was curious when the guns come in.
I was wondering the exact same thing because I'm still like technically in the tutorial. I guess that seems. I think I only have like one more thing in the tutorial to do, and it's like go challenge this boss. Make sure you got good equipment and you're leveled up. I have no idea where that is supposed to be. Maybe it's on my map somewhere. But I just feel like haven't even really explored around my base a whole lot yet, so I'm still doing that. But yeah, I've not seen a gun yet. I also have the bow and arrow, so it sounds like we've played maybe a similar amount of this game. Yeah, so that's something that I wanted to bring up is like so far the combat is like really boring and not very engaging. Just like baseball batting these Pokemon down and or these pals, sorry, and the bow and arrow is fine, but nothing special. And that's where I'm thinking like, okay, maybe this is more fun when it gets to the third person shooter part of it, because that's always fun in games. So that's maybe what I'm hoping for. Maybe it'll get a bit better at that point, a bit more engaging. Because so far, I'm finding the combat to be pretty dull. I don't feel like I'm fully understanding like how I'm supposed to use my pals in this game. It seems like you can only have one out at a time, but you have like 6 in your bag, I guess, at a time, so you can like switch between them. So I don't know if that's the idea. Is like you're kind of switching which one you have out in the active way, which I guess is similar to how Pokemon works. But then also like you're kind of sending those pals to like do tasks for you at your base. So I don't know. I'm a little confused about how it all works. Like there's a ton of things introduced early on in terms of like base building and whatnot. But yeah, are you finding much enjoyment with the combat? I think my favorite part is just throwing the I don't even know what the Pokeballs are called in this game, but
The
the
pal
Pokeballs,
spheres.
the Palspheres, yeah, like throwing those is fun. Just because that animation is always great in Pokemon when it just bounces off, the light pops out, absorbs them in. You wait for it to like shake around, like that's always great. So that's the part I'm liking the most. But so far, I'm not caring too much for the bow and arrow or the baseball bat.
Yeah, I am not really enthralled with the combat system. It's just hold the trigger down and you just keep boom boom boom
Yeah,
swinging away. Very very basic stuff. So it's no different from harvesting resources essentially, and that's kind of a shame. I feel like the two should be at least marginally different of an
that's a good point.
experience.
Yeah, they are pretty much the same.
Yeah, and maybe when you
Even like
get
building, you just hold X on this
yeah
structure for sometimes like a
yeah,
whole minute.
I'm hoping that at least maybe the guns have a a different vibe to it, but I'm really doubtful.
Yeah, I mean, even just looking at the, I guess what would you call it, like the crafting menu and how you get like a new row and then you can choose what you want to unlock there. Like that list, there's so much in there, so many things I haven't even built that I've just gone right past, and I'm sure that's you get tons of guns and weapons and all sorts of crazy things in there. Like I've seen a couple videos of people who are very far in this game and have like huge bases where they just have like I don't know how many Pokemon, but it seems like tens and tens and hundreds or something that are all like doing tasks and just running this huge factory essentially. And I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna get to that point. Like I don't think I'll play much more of this game. I'll probably look it up to see how long it takes to get a gun because I just want to see how that feels and if that's more fun. But I think I'm just a bit overwhelmed by it and a little uninterested because I just feel like I'd rather go make a new Minecraft save or like I never finished Tears of the Kingdom, so I'd rather go do that. And I just don't, or like even like Sword and Shield is a game I've kind of been playing on and off for years, still haven't finished. I might just want to go do that instead. I feel like it's maybe the lack of focus that is taking me out of this, but I also feel like this game would probably be a lot more fun in co-op. I mean, most games are more fun when you're playing with friends, but I also just feel like with how long it takes to build, like how much I just have to go collect wood in this game. It takes forever, collect stone, constantly running out. And I feel like some of those things would be a lot more fun and less tedious if you had a group of friends. And maybe the combat would be a lot more fun too, because it'd be 4 of you beating up on these guys. And okay, I'm going to try and take the aggro of them by like going up with my baseball bat, and a couple people in the back with their bows and guns, different Pokemon types, PAL types, sorry. I feel like that could be a lot of fun. And it does seem in a lot of ways like that's how the game was designed. And I don't know, any criticism you throw at this game, right? It's also like this is an early access game and it's not finished yet, so it feels like, okay, you're grain of salt here where maybe this game's just not done yet. Well, it isn't done yet. But that's definitely the feel I got. Did you play with your friends who were telling you about this game, or are you playing solo?
No, I was doing solo, and I think I might go back and see if they are open to just trying a little bit of a world experience.
I don't know if you can like bring your character in and start from where you are, or if you have to make a new save together. I'm not sure how that element of it works.
Yeah, that I found confusing. I just ended up making like I think it was on my own server and just making my own solo guy and whatnot.
I would suggest we play together, but I don't know if I'm going to play a whole lot more. So like, I might not be the best companion to go on this journey with you.
I just wish there was a little bit more clarity of information upon booting it up.
Yeah, I feel like the tutorial element of this game is pretty bad, and like there's pop-ups that go on, and like very early on in the game, it's like go to this page in the menu and there's more info here, and then in that page there's like all these different tabs you can go down, but like that's not a great engaging way for me to learn how to play this game. So that's something I really hope that they refine over the course of this early access period, and when the game finally goes 1.0, maybe at that point that would be a better time for me to jump in, because I genuinely don't play things in early access. I'd rather just wait. Even for things I'm excited for, I'd rather just wait. I just had to see what this one was like because it's the talk of the town at this point. But maybe that's the way to do it. Maybe I'll come back and maybe we could play at that point if you haven't played enough at this point in time. Because, yeah, it's just not really captivating me at this point. I do like, as much as the pals are very much ripping off Pokemon in a lot of ways, I think they're really creative and fun so far. Some of them, of course, feel a lot more derivative than others. But like, as much as that guy does look a lot like Ditto with that toque, I think Ditto looks cool, and I think toques are cool. So you combine the two, and it's like I'm into this guy. Like this guy's my favorite one that I have so far. And I just got this wolf that's pretty cool. So I'm liking the designs of them, and some of them, like there's this huge like elephant looking one. Have you seen that one? He's kind of like a grassy sort of elephant.
Yes.
Like, and he's he's level like 40, so there's no way I could catch him. I'd probably have a 1% chance to catch him if I threw a ball at him. If he didn't one-shot me. Like, I would love to have that guy in my party, and I think you can ride some of them, and I'm sure you can ride, like, flyers and whatnot, and there's definitely, like, I've seen one that looks exactly like Gyarados, so I'm sure there's water combat in this game. There's a little lake by my base, a little pond even. And there's no, like, water-based pals in there. So, I mean, that part is fun for me, is, like, just straight up the collecting element of it, and I guess I maybe wish the game was more about that instead of building a huge base. I feel like that's maybe a bit of a disconnect there, and once again, that is very much something that I think in co-op would not so much be an issue, but for me, it's just, I'm just finding like the base stuff to be really tedious, and the building, collecting resources part to be really tedious, and I just wish I could more quickly level up and go do combat, but then the combat's not super fun because I don't have the guns yet, so I just feel like no matter what element I look at the game at, I'm a little unimpressed, and that's, once again, early access, but I feel like one video that people kept posting when Scarlet and Violet was coming out was just like how Pokemon in the background would be going at like a 10 frame rate or something, right? Because they're like not part of the focus. In those videos of like, oh my god, chugging. That happens in this game. This is an Unreal Engine 5 game. This seems like this big, huge next gen Pokemon game, but it's really not. Like, it chugs a lot. It's very glitchy, bad tutorials. Like, it seems like it has a lot of those same problems that Pokemon has. So I once again, early access. You take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, that's definitely been top of mind for me too when I'm playing this game. Is that it just doesn't feel very polished or refined. Feels like it was maybe rushed to market, to get a bunch of money.
Mm-hmm.
And, if straight up they don't have enough money to fund this game and they need to get it in early access to make the money to keep developing it, sure, go ahead. And I don't know. Once again, that's just me not being an early access game fan, I suppose.
Are the worlds differently generated every time?
I would assume not.
Okay.
I started like up on this hill and I kind of have continually gone down this hill. Like very early on, there was like a lake. Or, not a lake, a pond with like a river going down and like a very flat area there, which seemed like this is where your first base should go. Does that kind of sound like similar?
That sounds the same, yeah.
But I also, right off the start though, I'm pretty sure you can like go up and exit through the mountain. Like, there's 2 different ways you can go. So probably right off the start, you could probably go a very different way, but it doesn't seem like the maps are randomly generated. It seems like they are pre-built. So not like Minecraft in that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If it was randomly generated, I'd be pretty impressed because it looks pretty well put together in that way, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I found the character creator to be freaking hilarious in this game. My character, it looks like Hatsune Miku or something. She's got like bright teal hair, like purple skin. I just felt like the customization you have is like you can change essentially the width of like your arms, your like I think torso, and then your legs.
Mm-hmm.
And Muds was watching me play, and I just like maxed out the bar for the arms and the thighs, and you can have just like the most monster thighs I've ever seen in a video game. It is hilarious. I ended up toning it down, but my character, like this kind of like anime sort of waifu looking character girl, but then she just has huge fucking arms. Like she is jacked, but it works because I'm like chopping down these rocks and trees, and I'm just swole out of my mind. It's perfect. So yeah, my character is just a total monstrosity. So even though you have very few options, I found it really, really fun. All the customization you had in there.
I like that. That's great.
Yeah. What else is there? I mean, like I said, I'm not maybe super into the base building stuff yet, and maybe I just have to unlock more. But I think for me, it really just comes down to like, man, getting these resources takes a long time. Getting wood and rock, and like I have that gravel pit thing now, so I can send my pal over there to work in that gravel pit, but I'll be gone like collecting things for like 20 minutes. I come back and he's got like 8 stone. I'm like, I can do that in 15 seconds. I don't like this is so slow, and that's where I'm sure it scales up when you get more and more of them, but then you probably need more and more resources to build the next tier of things. I just feel like it's always going to be one of those sort of things. So yeah, I don't know. It seems like you can build some really crazy stuff, and already there's been some fun customization. I think you unlock things really quick in this game, which also is pretty good, and you level up pretty fast as well. Yeah, I just wish it maybe wasn't quite as tedious, but it seems like there's, and once again, from some of these videos I've seen, they all look very janky, but some of the structures you can build and the huge stuff you can do is pretty insane. Seems like they aren't really limiting you in a way that like Fallout 4 had like a build limit that you would very quickly hit. It doesn't seem like this game really has much of that, or maybe those are modded pictures I'm seeing. I don't really know, but that stuff has been pretty cool. I just wish it was a bit maybe easier to engage with it.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts from you on this game?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty much all my thoughts on it.
I always ask you this, but are you going to keep playing this game?
I would like to go back and try it with friends. I think that would be that'd be the only thing I would really like to experiment with, and I would like to know where the guns come into play because I would like to try that.
I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look up how soon I'm going to get that based on where I am, and then I just like to try it. But if not, I think I'd come back when it's like 1.0, when it's fully released. If it's still on Game Pass, I don't think I'd buy this game outright based on what I've played here. But yeah, there's just so many like crafting games that I've missed over the years. Like even Lord of the Rings Return to Moria came out at the end of last year, which is just like a Lord of the Rings crafting game where you play as a bunch of dwarves in a dwarven mine. It's like, that's a co-op game as well. I really want to play that game. Like, I'd rather go do that than invest more time here, which that's a game that me, you, and Kirkland should find time to all play together. That'd be super fun.
Is it more than like two player
assume
co-op?
I assume it's like 4-player.
Oh, that's awesome.
Let me see if I can find the answer to this.
I did not know it was a crafting game. I did not know it was a co-op game. Sounds way
Up to
better than
8
the Golem.
players you can
Oh, no
have,
kidding.
apparently.
That's really cool.
I don't know if the game's any good, but I just feel like because of the setting alone, I'm sure we'd have good enough time to mess around with our silly dwarves and stuff. So, yeah, that's what I want to check out. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Okay, we are back. So, as I mentioned, Avowed was in the Xbox Developer Direct last week, 2 weeks ago, whenever that was. And then they did a interview to those devs, people who you would see in the Developer Direct. I think it was creative director and the gameplay director or combat director, one of those two, did an extended interview where they talked about some more features of the game. We didn't really see much more. We did see a little bit more new footage, actually. It was mostly that same sequence, that same like kind of sandy area with those lizard creatures, but you saw like more of a 5-minute chunk of it rather than like a bunch of cuts of different combat sequences. So you got to see a little bit more there, and we got a little bit more info here. So one thing that we didn't really know for sure, but we kind of know now, is that this game does have a 3-man party in the way that the Outer Worlds did, so that makes sense. It's cool. And then they talked about how the players in your party that aren't currently equipped, or equipped is the wrong word maybe, makes them sound like objects, but the people who are not currently in your party are going to go wait at like a player camp that you have, which I'm curious how that will be implemented in the game, because that was very much a thing in the Outer Worlds, right, where you had your ship, the Unreliable, and that's where your crewmates would wait if they weren't in your active party. And that was one of my favorite parts about the Outer Worlds. I love the companion system in that game, and I love the Unreliable as this place that you just go and you'd hear your companions talking, you'd see what they're up to. A couple of them have like tasks or jobs and things that they're doing. And so I'm curious to how this camp will set up. I'm guessing just in each major loading zone there'll be like a camp set up with a campfire and some tents and whatnot. And in there is where you can talk to your companions and just do some crafting, whatever you're going to do out there, which is very much the thing that Baldur's Gate 3 has. With Baldur's Gate 3, it's more like for each kind of designed area, there'll be a sort of a pre-generated player camp that you go to, and it's kind of more like a disconnected from the actual world. But I'm assuming these ones are going to be more integrated. But I'm curious to see that. So far, that stuff is sounding pretty good. This might sound like a little thing, but we saw in this extended gameplay, we saw that you can swim in this game. Swimming is confirmed.
Oh.
Which, there wasn't really water in any meaningful way in Outer Worlds that I can remember. There's just like maybe some rinky-dink little rivers that you couldn't swim in. And it actually looked really nice. It looked like, especially in those, just like this shiny teal sort of water, all the kind of coral reefs and whatnot underneath. Looked really nice. And I think that's perfect too, because this game does have sort of an island setting. And so I think having that as just will be good for exploration. But they went through some caves, just swimming underwater, doing some underground like spelunking almost to get to these other hidden areas. So it looked really cool. I'm into that. There was also this thing that they talked about we didn't see, where I guess some of the spells in the gameplay thing we saw that you could freeze one of these lizards, just pretty basic freeze spell, and you can go up and stab them. But you can also freeze like chunks of water too to make platforms, like icy platforms that you can then walk on and use to get to other areas. So that looks cool. I hope all this. Yeah, I hope all the spells have kind of ways that they can interact with both enemies and like the world at large. I think that'll be pretty fun. And then, so all that stuff so far, like that's all the positive stuff. But always with Avowed, it's always like a positive and then a negative for me. And one thing they talked about here that really bummed me out was them talking about the RPG systems in this game. We talked about how in that gameplay section, like they didn't really talk about that stuff at all. And that's something I was very curious about. And they've talked about how this game's going to have more of a Skyrim-style RPG system to it. There's no class. You don't make a player class in this game. No thief, warrior, mage. And instead, you're going to have like a Skyrim-style skill tree. So this really bums me out because, one, I think the RPG system in Outer Worlds was really good, and I was hoping they'd iterate on it, and I'm sure they will in some ways, but this seems to me like a bit of a step back. It seems like a bit more casual-fied. But also, like I've been playing some of Pillars of Eternity recently to try to just get into this world of Aora, their previous game set in this world. And that's very much like a Baldur's Gate, like D&D style RPG system, really in-depth. And the class I picked in that game for my character was the Chanter, which is like this musical based class that is like based on rhythm, and you're doing like certain chants that give you bonuses based on this thing. It's like a really, really cool stuff. And I was like, man, I can't wait to see all the classes they had in that game, tons of races and classes brought into Avowed here, and see that interpretation. But it seems like they're not really going to get that. Like there's no class whatsoever, and it's going to be more of a free-form Skyrim system. So I understand why they do that, and I was obviously very successful for Skyrim, but I was hoping for more of an in-depth RPG system similar to Pillars of Eternity. And it kind of like makes me not really care as much to play Pillars. Like I know there's characters and it's the same world, so there is relation there, but I was hoping that, okay, I'd maybe learn about some of these RPG systems and it would carry me into this, but it seems like not so much. So anyway, that's a lot of info there. I know I threw a lot at you at once, but any of that interests you? Or I know you love Skyrim, so maybe that RPG system is intriguing for you. I'm not sure.
I like the simplicity of it. I do like how, at least in Skyrim, they have certain, really, those totems that you could find that kind of emphasize what path you do, like
stones or
like
stones
melee or range or mage, that kind of stuff. Something like that is all I really need. I'm okay with. I love the idea of magic actually having effects on the world around you and interacting with your environment. I'm super big into that kind of a thing. So that works for me.
They talked about how there's like brambly overgrown areas too that you can like burn down with your fire spell to access hidden areas.
They should have been showing this. Like,
I know, right?
So cool.
They should have shown so much of this info in here. It's insane to me that they didn't.
Even the swimming, like
it looked great.
That's a
in this
huge
footage.
game
It's not like it was some
changer.
janky footage that they were trying to hide. Like it looked really nice.
Yeah, and I feel like that opens up a lot more exploration, a lot more of the world to interact with. So it's just so peculiar that they didn't feature these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if there's much more to say there, but of course I'm still excited for this game. My hype level, I feel like I've just set my expectations really low. So hopefully that means that they'll get exceeded because I've done so. But still a game I'm very intrigued in because I just love Obsidian's games so much. So there you go. Taylor, what have you been playing lately other than Palworld?
Well, I have, it's a new year, and I've been taking upon myself to kind of commit to some resolutions of playing games that have maybe been left behind. So I've been sitting down. I've been really trying to commit with Assassin's Creed Mirage, really trying to get to real credits on that. That's been a huge part of my focus, is just dedicating to completing it, and then I'll probably move on to another game that's still that I haven't beaten. Maybe there could be like a Cyberpunk.
You got Skull and Bones coming out soon, man. So you better leave some room in your calendar for that.
Well, that was the other thing that I was gonna bring up, because I am really getting interested in Skull and Bones, really, really interested, and it scares me because I'm very much it scares me. I'm afraid that this is gonna go the way of Anthem, and I don't know how do I spend the money to buy this game new when Avatar came out, and Avatar has been on sale since it's like the week after its release, like 25% off or something like that. So I'm very afraid, and I'd like to try it beforehand, because everything I'm seeing, I've been looking at videos for this game, and I saw that they dropped their roadmap, and there's just a lot of really cool things going on. So,
I'm gonna. This is a shot in the dark, but I'll send an email to Ubisoft so you can get a code for you. Maybe that would be the way to do it.
If you need
I feel like they're gonna want everyone in the world reviewing this. They're gonna try and get that marketing budget out there. So who knows? Maybe we can swing for the fences on this one. See if we can.
I'll flaunt my Assassin's Creed page, like, hey, I got all these followers on Facebook.
That would be a good thing to plug for sure.
Yeah, but it's something that's been on my radar for a prominent amount of time now. The more I see these videos, people talking about it, people saying that there are some things that could be refined a little bit more, but other than that, it's just people seem to have a lot of fun with the customization and the way that you can build your fleets of ships and have support ships, DPS ships, tank ships, like all these classes of ships just blows my mind. And then you have all these sea creatures. I saw like a Mosasaur jump out of the ocean that they were firing on. Like, I was just so into this. Oh my goodness.
I feel like a lot of the dialogue of this game has been, oh, it's getting delayed again. Like, what is the chance this release date sticks? It's going to get delayed. And that's kind of what we talk about. But really, you could look at that from another lens. That, like, man, this game's been in development for a long time, and that probably means that this game's like going to be super polished or have a ton of features. Like, I don't know. You could look at look at it that way too. So that's pretty cool to hear that they're from what I've seen, like other than the just absolutely atrocious amount of like icons and things on the screen, like it seems like they're fulfilling their vision here, or at least fulfilling a vision. Maybe it's not what your game originally was supposed to be, perhaps, but I think they've come a long way, and like it looks pretty solid. So I know it is expensive, so I'm not going to force you to get or anything, but I definitely would love to hear your opinions on it. But it sounds like, even if you don't get it at launch, you'll probably get it later this year, because that's a great point, man. With anything Ubisoft, I am at a point now where they've conditioned me to, like, I will never buy any of your games at launch because it's going to be within a year, like 50 or more % off, reliably, consistently. So like even, Mario Rabbids, the sequel, I was like, I remember I got that original one for like $15 eventually. So I'll just wait and I'll play Mario Rabbids sequel. It looks great, but I'll just play it a couple of years in the future for $15 instead of playing it right now. So I don't blame you for having that mentality. And I don't know, you already give Ubisoft enough with your Assassin's Creed purchase day one every time around, right?
It's true, yeah, I do. And I'm also thinking there's a chance that maybe it could just go onto that Ubi Plus on Xbox, and maybe I just pay a month for that. And
at some point, I am
can
gonna
try
hop on there for a month or two and just blast through a bunch of things. Looking forward to doing that.
The other thing too, just on my last note with Ubisoft, is I don't know if you saw that comment that they put out recently that really has really pissed off a lot of the gamers out there, consumers. I'm just trying to find the exact quote, so I'll paraphrase it a little bit here. But essentially, Ubisoft wants you to be comfortable not owning your games.
Oh, right. I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so everywhere I see Skull and Bones being advertised, everyone comments below like, I'm not buying this because I'm not going to technically own it. Like, it's just flaming Ubisoft.
Yeah, it is a weird time we live in, man, because I play so many things on Game Pass, or I've played through so many games on Nintendo Switch Online, and like at any point they could just take those things away from you, and it's scary. Like even like certain digital purchases, not just like online only games, but things can just go at any moment. So I hate that mentality that they have there, but at the same time, like I support those subscription services. I put a lot of money into them every year. Game Pass isn't cheap. Nintendo Switch Online is pretty cheap, but yeah, and like whenever I get PS5, I'm definitely gonna get that for access to some of those older games. So I'm part of the problem there, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know. I wish there was more option for some of these things, and I think what Xbox does is pretty nice. Where, hey, if you subscribe to Game Pass, any of these games that you see on here, you get a discounted price on if you're a Game Pass subscriber. So that way, if it's leaving, you can pick it up, and now you own that thing. But in general, like you can just buy things for a cheaper way, and that way you do own them. You at least own them for now. That's maybe the downside with Nintendo Switch Online is you're playing all these games for who knows how long until they decide to stop supporting this app, and then you don't own any of these things, and they'll just be lost to obscurity again, and then you'll be forced to pay for them again in a different way. So yeah, I wish there was just better options. I think for some of these particularly older games, like even for Sony, I'm not sure how that works for some of that back catalog, like PS1, PS2 emulation stuff. Like I don't know if you can buy those outright, or if you can only play them through that subscription service, which there's obviously a lot of issues with that kind of thing in terms of being limited there. So yeah, fuck Ubisoft for having that point of view. I don't like that at all. Well, going back to Assassin's Creed though, any new developments or thoughts as you're playing through that? Based, like, I guess just different from the review. Still enjoying it. Any like new mechanics or any new things that have popped up? Is there any? I'm guessing there hasn't been any new like content yet.
No,
I don't even know if this game's getting like DLC. It might just be kind of like a one done story situation.
I'm not expecting, like, usually they do DLC, but I'm not really expecting a roadmap or anything. I feel like this game was set out to just be a homage to the original, and that's all it is. I feel like I've been seeing little bits of rumors here and there about a codename Red with Assassin's Creed Japan, that they're kind of like working on that a little bit more now. So that's okay. Like for me with the game, I've seen more people's feedback that they don't like how short it is, and people like Valhalla, they like Odyssey more, and that's not really for me. Mirage is definitely where I'm thriving, and so
I mean they're still making those kind of games, so I don't know why those people are what they're on about. Like it's not like you're you're still getting tons of Assassin's Creed games. You're getting less than you used to, but you're still getting a lot of them. And they've have
absolutely.
like 5 or 6 different ones announced right at this point.
Absolutely, yeah. So, as for things they're new with the game, there's not really anything else new that I've really uncovered. I'm pretty sure I mentioned it, but they had like a fast assassination method, kind of like Red Dead Redemption, where you slow mo and highlight a bunch of targets, and then it's like quick fire off
Right.
on them. I think I mentioned that during the review, but
Yeah, I think so.
aside from that, it's just discovering new places, exploring the map, and just working away at the skill tree. Not necessarily the skill tree. I guess like the equipment tree, unlocking new equipment, stuff like
Okay.
that, and whatnot. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
You talked about how you're thinking about what's next. Would do you think you know what you're going to knock off the list next after you're done with Mirage? Assuming you don't get Skull and Bones and that doesn't consume your time for a few weeks.
Yes. So I know I'd have to look at my shelf, but I know I've wanted to at some point Cyberpunk and Red
Right,
Dead 2. Those are big ones on my list that are
Okay.
just very daunting for me. But good lord, you think I
Trying
could
to think.
remember?
Aliens, I think you were still playing through. Dark Descent.
Thank you. Yeah, that's another one. That's a main one actually that I really want to get back into and actually indulge in. Oh, that was so good. And I did play a little bit more of it a couple weeks ago.
Oh, nice.
And it's just such a wonderful game. That world, just from a top-down perspective, is just so beautiful, and I just appreciate everything they did for that game. Oh, they did such a good job.
Cool. Yeah, for me, nothing too major. Like I'm still just working my way through Baldur's Gate 3. That's a very time-consuming game, and I don't know, certain encounters I have to like reload my save and try them over and over again. So sometimes I feel like I'm doing one encounter for an entire week. So it's slow moving, but I'm still playing through that. A couple quick hits for me. So did you ever hear about this game? Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. Do you ever see that game? I think it was on Game Pass at some point.
No, I haven't.
It's a very silly, like, I never played it, but it was like a very silly kind of top-down action hack and slasher sort of game. And I feel like it's intentionally trying to grab you with like a goofy over-the-top title, and kind of the way that like Untitled Goose Game, like its whole shtick and like its whole marketing beat is like being kind of silly and stupid. And I feel like that's what that first game was doing. But they just had a new one come out, and it's a Game Pass game, so I wanted to check it out. It's now this new one's called Turnip Boy Robs a Bank. And it's very much the same thing. I don't know what the gameplay was like of the first one. I think, like I said, it's somewhere in that genre. But this one's more of a roguelike, it seems like. But there's a million like side quests you're doing. It's a funny game. It's making me laugh, which not a lot of games tend to do, because you just have all these silly characters. I really like the pixel art. The music's nice. It's kind of fun. It's a bit of a mindless hack and slashy sort of game, but I like the setting of it. It's kind of been fun to go through. So I don't know if I'll finish it by any means, but kind of a funny thing there. Check it out. It's on Game Pass. And then the other one I checked out is this game called Kameo. Elements, I forget what the subtitle is. It's Element something, but this is like a game from like 2005 or 6. It's a Rare developed game, and the reason I checked this out is sometime last year I had downloaded the Rare Replay collection, right, which is just all those old Rare games. A couple of them have like couple new things added in, but I was going through that, and Kameo was one that seemed interesting to me, and so this game just like reeks of like 2005. Like it definitely feels like the era it comes from in like good and bad ways, and that it feels a little bit dated, but it also is just like a fun, Rare 3D kind of platforming collectathon, some combat boss fights in there. The main shtick of it is that you are kind of transforming into these different elemental sort of creatures. So you have like this like piranha plant type thing who's like a boxer, or like this Yeti type character. Or my favorite one is you can transform into, it's just like pile of rocks, and they're like, the way they're like jostling around and rolling around is really satisfying. You can like shoot the rocks out, but then if you like hold the triggers down long enough, you kind of like explode, and just the physics of all these rocks flying across the screen like a grenade, and then you're just like the one rock left that's like the head bouncing around, and then all the rocks slowly come back to you and you start piling up again. It's just really, really satisfying. So I just love Rare as a developer. I think they make just such fun, playful games. And they're one of those developers that, like, you know, you look at the N64 and they just had so many games released in that era. And then I feel like after that, people kind of forgot about them a bit. That was like a big heyday there with like Banjo-Kazooie, Donkey Kong 64, GoldenEye. And then they kind of had this weird era there where they're still making games, but like this game, for example, and like Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts and other weirder things. And then I feel like they didn't really do much for a few years. And then they got acquired by Microsoft. Now they made Sea of Thieves, and like they're just very slowly kind of releasing things now, and Rare Replay at some point. But this was it's been a fun game to go back to, just because it feels like an N64 game, but it is like I guess a 360 era game, early 360 era. So it's a bit at higher fidelity, but it's just fun, silly, kind of stupid. Feels very much like a DreamWorks movie in terms of the tone.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I'm enjoying that. That's been a good time checking that one out. So another easy Game Pass recommend there. And then last, I just wanted to shout out Call of Duty that me, you, and Travis and Emily have been playing. I guess it's not even really new anymore. The map's been out for a couple months at this point, but I always forget the name. What's it called?
Urzikstan.
Yeah. So I had I think my first impressions of the map were like, this is kind of boring, not that interesting, not really liking this mode necessarily. But the more we've played it, the more I've come to enjoy it. It's very like the matches are a lot shorter, right? Because the starting zone is like such a small chunk of the map, and the games go by pretty quick. But we've got a ton of wins on there now. We had one night, I think it was not this previous weekend, but the weekend before, 2 weekends ago, where we got like 3 wins almost back to back, which was really sweet. We kind of got slobbered on this. We got just destroyed this last weekend, but still had a couple of decent games in there. But yeah, that's been a lot of fun playing more of that. And excited because I think the new mode's coming out somewhat soon, right? Or Rebirth Island going back to the old map.
Plan. Right? Yeah, Rebirth Island will be coming out at some point. I think later 2024. Right. And I keep seeing rumblings of Verdansk returning. I know it's coming to mobile.
I still think that's my favorite of all of the Warzone maps. So hopefully that does come out again. That'd be fun. So some revamps, some new features on there or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's been good.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much it. I think that will do it for here at Sidequest. And yeah, like I said, maybe later this week we will have the Sony State of Play coverage. If not, we'll be back with me and Travis next week for covering that on the regular weekly episode. So thank you everyone so much for listening, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.